Welcome all. Welcome back to Dominant Mets Nation, where our New York Mets are lying in wait to play the Atlanta Braves, coming off an amazing series victory over the Philadelphia Phillies. That team supposedly was ranked the number one team in all of baseball. So our magical New York Mets on a magic carpet ride simply to a potential 2024 World Series. Can anything stop this team? Is this a team of destiny? You know what? A lot of folks around MLB are saying, the Mets are that potential team of destiny. Since that 22-33 horrible start, our New York Mets are 65-36, playing 30 games above 500, and in this month of September, steamrolling essentially every opponent. Well, you know what, folks? This team looks an awful lot different from where we started and from where we want to go. We are on track to do something extremely, extremely special. We're going to get into that today. And you know what? There is a buzz. You look at all these shows across the nation, and everybody's talking about our New York Mets. And it's extremely a thrilling feeling for our franchise to be in this situation. And I gotta say, I gotta thank one man, because I knew when David Stearns was going to take over this franchise, we would eventually get this team going, get this franchise on the right track. It was just a matter of when this thing would be jump started. And I know this moment, this team was jump started by Mr. Jorge Lopez. When he threw his glove, when he said he's part of the worst team in all of baseball, that spurn, that was the emphasis for our team meeting, and that got this team going. And then we went on. Everybody started having career years. I mean, in the beginning of the year, you'd be like, oh, how could this team win 90 to 95 games with the talent is on it? That's on it. You would have to say, oh, Sean Manaea would have to have a career year. Luis Severino would have to be healthy the whole year. Edwin Diaz would have to eventually get back to form. Lindor would have to be an MVP. Up and down the lineup, Alvarez would eventually have to start being the catcher we know he can. Maybe have a couple young guys, like a Budo. He would have to be dominant in the bullpen. Then you'd have to have some journeymen in the bullpen. Phil Maton, Reed Garrett. These guys would have to have successful years as well. But it would just be too many things having to go right. Nimmo would have to have a career year. You would think Martinez would do good, but we're doing it without Martinez. And then, in the last couple weeks, you have other guys stepping up, and that's what happens in a magical year. You have guys like Acuna filling in when Lindor gets hurt. All throughout when every time our back has been against the wall, we have found a way to be resilient. And last Monday, it was posed. Are we done? Our MVP is out. And I made a video, and 3 specific reasons I said no. Obviously, one of the first ones I mentioned, this team is resilient. We have been backed up against the wall so many times, and we have found a way to overcome and get better, grow stronger. Number 2, our culture. This team's culture is on a different level, And you know what, folks? Also, I think there's a component that we're not really thinking about, and I'm going to mention that when I talk about Lindor shortly. But it's just so amazing how everything has come together. And when you say a team of destiny, it's not about having the best collection of players, the most talented players. If that was the case, Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, they'd have championships. But the last time I checked, they don't have championships. It's not about having the best players. It's about having the best team. It's about being hot at the right time, things going together. It's more than just about having the most talented players. And I know this team has that it factor. They believe in themselves. They believe in each other. Team chemistry is off the charts with this team. Iglesias, oh my God, a guy like that to have a renaissance season like he has at age 34, the type of glue and the type of camaraderie he provides, it is just insane. And everybody, all 30 teams would like a player like Iglesias because he has done so much. He has really done so much. So number one, today's show, Team of Destiny. Do you believe is First of all, do you believe in destiny? Second of all, do you think that we potentially could be a team of destiny? I believe in stuff like that. I've made a lot of predictions in the beginning of the year. I'm going to hold forward with this. This is going to be a special team. Everything can't go right. Everything can't go, but in this situation, in this team, everything seems to go right. And stay tuned because the nightmare matchup at the end, I think you're going to want to stay tuned for that because I got some good info on that. Okay, so number one, we covered Team of Destiny. Number two, Phillies overrated. Okay, we just took 3 out of 4 at Citi Field, at an electric Citi Field, at a Citi Field atmosphere that Nimmo, Alonso basically invited the fans out and said, come support us and we'll take care of business. And we did. Nimmo showed up, Alvarez showed up, the whole team showed up. It was an amazing, exciting series. Christopher Sanchez, the only game we lost, the game we got blown out, he had a great outing, but we essentially gave up on that game. If you want to check out my last video, I told you about that, and I said if you're if you're in 5 or 6 weeks of Game 7 games back to back to back, you're gonna need a game like that where you have a breather, and that's basically what it was, a breather. We stepped on the gas pedal the very next day. Okay, fine. We took 3 out of 4, and when I said the Phillies are overrated, I'm not saying that they stink. I'm not saying that they're not good. I'm just saying that all over the place, ESPN, MLB, ESPN, they tout the Phillies as the best team in baseball. I don't believe that. I've said this for weeks. I've said the Phillies are not the best team in baseball. I said the Phillies are beatable. They have weaknesses, and the Mets have exposed some of those weaknesses. That's all I'm saying. If I don't believe they're ranked number one, I believe they're overrated. Simple as that. They are good, but we can beat them, and we did. Okay, Acuna, Alvarez. In the last week and a half, 2 or 3 weeks with Alvarez, you could see the impact Alvarez had. Alvarez always had an impact on the pitchers and on winning. Even when he was not hitting and he was going through that terrible slump, everybody and a lot of people said, why isn't Torrens playing? You could clearly see Alvarez is not right. Well, the reason why Torrens didn't play, even though Torrens has a good arm, and even though Alvarez wasn't hitting, it's because of the fact that Alvarez does all these intangibles. We have a great mammoth winning record with Alvarez, and the pitchers, most importantly, love throwing to him. They love the game that he calls, and it shows in the results. The ERA pitched when Alvarez is the catcher is approaching the low twos. When Torrens catches, it is in the low fours. So it's almost a 2-run difference, and that's the Alvarez effect. Now you see when Alvarez starts turning into that offensive monster, the one that we knew was his strength. Defense, we knew he would be serviceable, but wasn't supposed to be his strength. He was supposed to be an offensive beast. Now you have this offensive guy combined with how he affects the pitching staff. You look back at all our successful, runs. Besides, 86, you have Gary Carter. In the 2000s, you had Piazza. Even in 2006, LaDuca he was batting close to 320 that year. You've always had really a good catcher. Good catchers they have so much of an impact. If you go from team to team, Giants, when they won their 3 World Series, you had Buster Posey back in the Yankees. You had Jorge Posada in their dynasty run. There's always a good catcher. The Braves back in the day, Javi Lopez. There's always having a good catcher is such a big advantage. Having a good shortstop is such a big advantage. Lindor being out, Acuna, Iglesias stepping up, and not just being serviceable. These guys are playing at an elite all-star, superstar, almost level. And it is so damn inspiring to the other guys to the team. So Acuna stepping up, Iglesias continuing to rake. The guy is batting close to 340, having about 300 at bats a half a season. That is insane. That is insane. So, now that brings us to our next topic, and we're going to go over the Lindor type of dilemma right now. And it's a little, you can really say that it's worrisome. And I'm going to get you some quotes from Lindor because, you know, we were worried when it happened. Obviously, we were all worried. You hear back, you're worried. Gets the MRI, gets clearance that all the structural issues are good, and you feel a little relieved. But now it's been about a week and a half, and Lindor is still saying that he has pain. He had the injection 4 or 5 days ago. That injection, you might wake up 5 days later, 2 weeks later, and the pain may be gone. That shot works different from everybody. So Lindor says, if I play this year, I don't think it's going to be pain-free. And I'm okay with that. I just don't want to be in constant pain where I can't bend over. Then I'm putting my team in a position where I'm not helping them as much as I can, he said. That's not fair to anybody. For me, it's to be in a position where if it's going to hurt, it's going to come and it's going to go. So this wasn't an article. Okay, so this was said yesterday by Lindor. And as we break down this, and we have more quotes to go over, it is a bit worrisome. So the first thing he says is, if I play this year, right? So, I mean, there's no confidence there. Obviously, there's no confidence in that statement, which is extremely alarming, extremely worrisome, right? Extremely worrisome. And then the second part of that statement, I don't think it's going to be pain-free. So that tells you, even if we get Lindor to come back, he's not going to be at 100%. It's not going to be 100%. So he's telling you he will do that. And he just does. And then the next thing that's alarming, I just don't want to be in a constant pain where I can't bend over. So, I mean, honestly, there's something going on with Lindor. I wholeheartedly believe if it wasn't the playoffs, or if it wasn't down the stretch where we need to make the playoffs, it wouldn't even be a question. He'd be shut down for 3 or 4 weeks, and then we'd have further evaluations at that point. Only reason why it's day to day is because of the moment. So here's what I think. And before I tell you what I think, okay, let me just give you a couple more quotes to make you feel a little bit better. Lindor has missed 7 straight games because of a sore back and been limited to 1 inning in the last 9. The star shortstop has received a numbing injection. We know that. Okay, so then they asked Lindor, how has your back been since the injection? And then he goes, it's definitely made it a bit more mild, but it didn't take the pain fully away. He said that immediately after the Mets won a day and a half ago, 2-1 over Philly. Lindor spoke in the Mets clubhouse with his daughters, and then he goes, last Sunday, I couldn't really walk. I was rolling out of bed. He says, right now, I can touch my daughters and make sure they're staying with me. Lindor has been working on the field before games, hitting, running, throwing, taking grounders, and hitting soft toss. He hasn't hit off pitchers and hasn't run the bases. We all play with pain. I think players would be lying if they say, oh, I feel 100%, he said. There's something that's bothering them. Okay, so that to me is, again, worrisome. Last week, he couldn't even bend down to touch his daughters. This week, it's a little better, but clearly there's something going on, clearly. So I believe the players right now, we are playing for Lindor. The best scenario right now, the best scenario with the Braves coming 3 games, and for the Milwaukee series after that, is to take these 2 games in Atlanta, win the 2 games, clinch our playoff berth, and somehow have Lindor at least rest until the end of the season. He doesn't sound like, even though he is willing to play with pain, it doesn't sound like he's ready to come back anytime soon. And us having invested in Lindor for the next 7 seasons, we have to keep that in mind with our decision making this year. If he was a free agent, it'd be a whole different set of circumstances. But this is our franchise player that we have over $250 million still left to pay him. So let's keep that in mind. And he's a shortstop too. So he's a guy who needs to be mobile. He's a guy who relies on mobility. And honestly, it's a bit scary. It sure is a bit scary. So that is my update. That's my recommendation. My update is he's still got a lot of pain, and I believe he should be. The only way that he doesn't get fully shut down is if the Mets lose. So right now we are essentially playing for Lindor, and obviously ourselves. All right, so let's get into our next topic and Senga back. Is Senga coming back, and when? Okay, so as we all know, Kodai Senga was having that very important AAA start on Saturday night, and that was going to determine when Kodai Senga could potentially come back. Hopes were is that he would return somewhere in the Milwaukee series in a couple of days. But, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. In the minor league rehab start on Saturday, Senga was experiencing tricep tightness. So he was experiencing tricep tightness in the game. So obviously, he's not going to pitch in this year. He was supposed to be pain free. The rehab start was supposed to be seamless, but it's not. It's not. So Mendoza was asked about this, and Mendoza said way before this, it's hard to say with Kodai. Some days he's feeling phenomenal, some days he's not. So then it was asked, so what's going on with Senga now? So Mendoza goes, for me, it's hard to tell now. It's been hard for him all year. He's worked his tail off. You feel for him. Every time he wants to push it and he wants to take the baseball, he's dealing with something. Hopefully, this is nothing serious, but it's going to set him back a bit. So the thing now is, if we go advance in the playoffs, he might return at some point. But again, like Lindor, Kodai Senga is signed for next year. So, he's one of the few guys in the rotation. You have Kodai Senga, you have David Peterson. We don't have much of a rotation next year. So we want to make sure Senga is good to go. You don't want to push him back if he's not ready. So that's the basic, simple update. Unfortunately, he didn't have, he didn't have a pain-free, or not pain-free, but he didn't have an issue-free rehab outing. So bottom line, Senga is going to be potentially coming back in the playoffs, but we're not certain with that. We are not certain. But the big thing is we have the Braves series coming up. And obviously this is do or die now. It is do or die. We take two games from the Braves, season over. And at this point right now, I don't want to play games. I want to take the pressure off this team for a few more games. Just a few more games. We need a bit of a break before the playoffs. And I'm not saying that we're going to take a foot off the pedal, but we've been playing every single 9-inning games like it's the game 7. So I believe our team right now just needs a little of a breather. So winning those 2 games, and it's not going to be easy in Atlanta, but that would seal the deal for us. That would clinch the spot for the playoffs. That would make it so Atlanta, even if they did win the rest of the 4 games and we lost our remaining 4 games, they would tie us, and we would hold the tiebreaker since we beat them 2 out of 3, and we would have more wins than them in the series matchup. Okay, and tonight's matchup is going to be Luis Severino versus Spencer Schwellenbach. Schwellenbach is 7-7 on the year with a 3.61 ERA. Luis is 11-6 with a 3.79 ERA. Tomorrow's matchup is going to be between David Peterson versus Chris Sale. Chris Sale has been, phenom, 18-3 with a 2.38 ERA. And, that's a guy. I had a video in the past. I'm like, hey, if there was one move that I wanted Stearns to make, it would have been for Chris Sale. And the great thing about that move by the Anthopoulos of the Braves, they gave up Grissom. Basically had one mediocre year. He was a young player. We have plenty of young players we could have gave up. And he also got Boston to pay half the contract for Chris Sale. So they have Chris Sale for this year and next year. That was a great move to acquire Chris Sale. And then in our last game of the series, you have Sean Manaea going up against Max Fried. Max Fried is 10-10 with a 3.42 ERA. Thursday's game is a bit of a question mark. Right now, on Tuesday, it's predicted that a hurricane or a tropical storm is going through the area on then. So it could be a game that they do a doubleheader tomorrow on Wednesday, but I don't think they've decided that as of recording. Okay, but all these games are going to be extremely important. We're going to have to keep the bats going. That's the important. We keep the bats going, and our pitchers have to step up. Okay, so now we're going to get into our nightmare scenario, and this has been posed by a couple MLB prognosticators saying that the team we don't want to face in the playoffs is the Brewers. And we're going to go over legit reasons why. Okay, so if you can say the biggest weakness of the Mets, if you can identify the weakness, is it defense? Is it the lineup? Is it the starters? Is it the bullpen? I think most 9 out of 10 fans would still identify the bullpen as our weakest part of our team. Okay, so that being said, the goal for the Milwaukee Brewers would be to get to the bullpen. Earlier you get to the bullpen, the advantage would sway to the Brewers. Okay, so what did the Brewers do well that could give them, that type of advantage? So the Brewers draw the third most walks in all of baseball. This team works counts and they take walks. The only teams that draw more walks are the Yankees and the Dodgers. Okay, so that would actually allow the bullpen or force the bullpen to come in earlier. And also too, there's guys on the Mets who have high walk rates. Jose Butto has a 13.1% walk rate. Reed Garrett has an 11.7% walk rate. So our bullpen hasn't been the best in terms of control. Phil Maton, give him credit. He does have the best control, or have had good control since coming here, and he needs good control. If he's not locating, we are screwed because he's a guy who doesn't throw the ball hard. So he relies on control. He relies on movement. Number two, the Brewers actually draw, I believe they draw the most pitchers per plate appearance. It's four, and I wrote this down wrong. I think it's 4.3. So on average, their batters take over 4 pitchers per plate appearances, which tells you they work the pitcher. They work the count. This is what they do. And the Mets, although our back end of the bullpen has been a lot stronger as of late, with Diaz, really doing much better. And you guys got guys like Butto, even Reed Garrett stepping up in the Daniel Nunez role. You're gonna have trouble if our starting pitchers aren't giving you length. Let's say we're knocking guys out in the 4th and 5th inning on consecutive nights. That is where we're going to have trouble. And that seems like that is the game plan of the Milwaukee Brewers. That is the game plan of the Milwaukee Brewers. And that is why I was hoping for the return of a guy like Kodai Senga, because that would help the middle relief. I was hoping for a return of a guy like Paul Blackburn, because that would help give length to our bullpen. So, that's just a quick snippet into what the Brewers do well and what our small weakness would be. The good thing is we can do the same thing to the Brewers, and we have so many strengths to overcome that small, tiny supposed weakness. Okay, apologize for the long video. You can like, subscribe. We got a lot more videos and content to come. We got the big playoff run, or I'm going to say World Series run, and then we have free agency. So let's go New York Mets, and I will speak to everyone very, very soon. Have yourself a great day, and very important Brave series, very important.